What's up, everybody? This is Urzio99, and today I'm going to cover a little bit of space trucking and high sec. For those of you who don't know, recently there was Burn Mar, which is basically Goonswarm Federation and their allies get together and basically murder zone any valuable freighters they come across in a certain area. This year it was around the Amar trade hub and its adjacent systems. So a lot of people are going to be asking, how can they do this? Well, they use a technique called suicide ganking, in which they target ships with exorbitantly high amounts of cargo in them for the effort it takes to destroy them. The idea being that they're sacrificing a lot of cheap ships to destroy a ship that could potentially yield some very, very high gains. This episode I'm going to show some of the ways you can transport goods in high sec and be a lot safer for it. And we'll start here with the interceptor. As you can see, it's my Raptor. Now, the Raptor does not have a very big cargo hold. As you can see, it's only 92 cubic meters. The interceptor has the fastest warp speed, except with the exception of the Leopard shuttle. It's also interdiction nullified and can be fitted to be very, very fast aligning, which is the reason I use them. This has a line speed of about 2 seconds and warps at 8 AU per second. So it can get up and move. And as you can see, it's just internal inertial stabs and low friction nozzle joints and an MWD just in case. Basically all you do, you take small high value cargo like blueprints, throw them in here, undock, and warp to zero, warp to zero, warp to zero. And you'll align and warp really quick, which is really what you want. The next, now I do have an Iteron Mark V. As you can see, 24,000 cubic meters of cargo. These things are sitting ducks. Now this one doesn't have cargo expansion rigs, but it does have a full set of expanded cargo holds. I don't use these industrials, especially the bigger ones, just because they are very much target. These things are slow as molasses. Plus they have almost no defense. So I tend to avoid using Tech 1 industrials. I do, however, use Tech 2 industrials. This is my Viator. This is a Blockade runner. As you can see, those slots, it's rigged for cargo. The Blockade runner is unique, though, in that it can interface with a covert ops cloaking device. Its cargo bay is also completely unscannable. And it warps fairly quickly, 6.6 AU per second, so it's got some legs to it. So all you really have to do, you come into an area where there's people crowding up on near a gate, just cloak up. Fit a micro warp drive and you can do the micro warp then cloak trick. I tend to use this for a little larger fast deliveries. Another ship that you can use are known as deep space transports. Now, these are akin to these ships are akin to the Blockade runner. They're a little different. There's a deep space transport receives a bonus to repair amounts, as you can see, but instead of a regular hangar, it has a fleet hangar. In the fleet hangar, as you can see, it starts at 50,000 cubic meters and it expands 5% for every level of transport skill that's trained. So it can be up to 60,000 cubic meters bigger on this one. Plus it has +2 warp core strength and 100% bonus to the effects of overheating afterburners, micro warp drives, local repair modules, and resistance modules. So because of these strengths, it's much harder to take down. Plus it receives bonuses to armor resistances and repair amount. So these things can take more of a beating. They have a much larger bay to transport in. I don't own one at the moment, but they're a pretty good buy. The next step up would be the Orca Industrial Command Ship. These tend to be very skill point intensive, but they're primarily used for supporting mining operations in high security space. But they do have a fairly good variety of cargo hold. They have a fleet hangar, they have a ship maintenance bay, they also have an ore hangar, and a fairly good sized cargo hold as well. That being said, they are slow as molasses. They're basically a baby freighter. And they're very skill point intensive. You have to have Mining Director 1 to be able to fly them, which most people are not going to train. Then we have the Piece de la Resistance. This is what everyone's been up in arms about, is freighters. Okay. As you can see, I've got cargo extenders in currently. 50,000 armor, 17.5 shield, 62,000 structure, effective HP 135,000. Sounds like a lot, but remember, most of your bulkier HP is right there in your hull, and you have no resistances because no damage control. You can't fit one. But I was hauling stuff that wasn't very valuable, so I was more worried about capacity, because no one's going to rip me off for a million units of heavy water. It would not exactly be a prize. So we'll go ahead and install our reinforced bulkheads. As you can see, my effective HP went up to 341,000. My hull HP went up by 200,000 HP. Now my cargo capacity went from 1,000,000 cubic meters down to 372,000. This is what's known as tanking your freighter. You want to do this. You are a less attractive target if you have bulkheads in, because it's going to take a lot more guys to kill you. In fact, just to get through your structure alone is going to take probably 2 to 3 times as many people as it would have to get the other guy who wasn't tanked. Now, that being said, freighters are easily some of the slowest ships in New Eden. They align like they look. They make my semi-truck at work seem graceful. They have a 60-minute align time, 60-second align time, usually in most cases. And they warp at 1.3 AU a second, which is so bloody slow. I've literally had warps where I was in warp for 2 minutes straight to go across one system because it was 120 AU warp. It was not fun. Now putting the tank on is the first step to making yourself not a victim. The second step is to be mindful of the value of what you load into your cargo hold. Now, if I threw everything from this hangar into this ship, it would be 2.69 billion. Still a tempting target. Always, whenever you're hauling cargo, strive to keep the value of the cargo under 1 billion ISK. If it's below 1 billion ISK and you've got your tank on, you become a lot less appealing of a target for the random suicide ganker in Uedama, because code doesn't care about you and your little freighter when there's going to be somebody who's putzing along not paying attention on autopilot that they can gank, who's got 5 billion ISK worth of stuff in his, and he's got cargo hold expanders on. You make yourself less of a target by making yourself less desirable. So that's one big thing. The other thing I would suggest is, if you know you're going on a dangerous run, if you have to go through places like Uedama, if you, for example, go from Judah to Dodixie, Rennes, or Heck, unless you go the long way or you try and take a shortcut through Losec with a fleet, you're going to have to go through Uedama. Me personally, I never take a freighter through Uedama. If I have to buy a lot of crap out of Dodixie, then I'll use Red Frog Freight, or I'll go get a DST or something, and I'll do that. But I can usually operate here out of the forge pretty easily. Don't need Dodixie. Those are the few of the important things to remember when you're dealing with hauling, is to make yourself less of a target. Is it inconvenient? Absolutely. I've had to make 16 jump trips to Jeddah in one day to pick up and deliver product so that I stayed under the 1 billion price tag. And I had to do 16 jumps in a freighter. At the end of the evening, I wanted to stab myself in the dick. But that's kind of what you sign up for. And I took out my frustrations with the Gila later on that evening. Would say I went and shot Red Crosses, but they're not Red Crosses anymore. So that's how you can keep yourself from being a victim. Hopefully it'll come in handy. Other things to be mindful of. Keep an eye on the Eve News sites. Like Eve News 24, the Matani.com. And keep your ear to the ground about large community events like Burnamar, Burnjita. And when they are announced, stay away in anything that's large. Go in a small ship and watch the fireworks if you must. But don't bring a freighter in there, because even if it's empty, they'll pop it. But that should do it for this episode. Mergiel99, and I'll see you next time.